Hey everybody, I want to kind of sort of, I've been scratching my head because it itches, and also because I'm thinking how to explain why therapy doesn't work with the narcissists, why explaining it doesn't work, but in a way that you can understand and relate to, rather than just trying to academically understand. So if you've done any amount of research, and assuming that this is not your first foray ever into any sort of narcissist video ever, you understand that narcissists generally are defined in a number of ways, but part of the definition is a lack of empathy, the deficits in empathy, whole object relations, and object constancy, an overinflated ego, and a low self-esteem. These are the from Big Lebowski, the little Lebowski urban achievers, right? They have deficits, so they can't really relate to people. So I wanted to sort of figure out a very common social situation that we should all be familiar with, and then sort of put the blind spots in there, like how a narcissist sees the world, and see if you can maybe better understand it. And I hope this lands in the general vicinity of being correct. So we'll see. So let's use a common interaction that we are all familiar with, and that's going to a restaurant and assuming that the whole restaurant visit goes well. You sit down, you have a mighty fine waiter or waitress, you banter back and forth, you put in your orders, they kind of bullshit with you a little bit. Your food comes out, you eat your food is delicious, they give you the tab, you look at the tab, and you say, well, this experience was certainly worth the money, and you sign the tab, and you put your gratuity down there to pay the waiter or the waitress for their service, right? This is a well understood, accepted social interaction. So it's a social interaction and a monetary transaction, right? Where service equates to money, the relationship is understood, and everybody involved sort of knows the choreography, right? Now, when you have blind spots in whole object relations and object constancy, I'm sure you have gone to a restaurant with a narcissist or somebody who just doesn't tip. If you haven't, then you've at least seen the movies. Reservoir Dogs comes to mind, where you just never pay somebody a tip, because why would you ever pay someone who works for tips? They're an idiot, and you're helping them by making them suffer to the point of motivating them to get a, quote, real job in an office working 9 to 5. We all know assholes like that. We all know people who eat the entire plate of food and then say it was horrible and want to get their money back. We all know waiters and waitresses who really suck at what they're doing. It's really like not their calling. Like they should be serving nobody ever. So we know that the ways that these interactions go wrong. It's a very common library, right? Of we go to the restaurant. This is all the things that can go right. These are all the things that can go wrong. The waiter can be the offender, or you, the customer, can be the offender. Or some other customer sitting next to you, and you're also a customer, right? We're all very familiar with all of these scenarios. So now I want to put the blinders on you to experience the world as a narcissist. So we say, before I get into this, we say that therapy doesn't really work on narcissists ever, because narcissists already believe that they're right and they're correct, and they don't see any problem with their behavior, because if they did, well, then they would change their behavior. But they believe that they're correct and that they're right. They feel that they're correct and they're right, and so legitimately they don't see what the problem is. and so therefore they believe that there's not a problem. And these are key operative words. They don't see the problem. Therefore, they don't believe there is a problem, because they do not see the problem. And they cannot see the problem because in order to see the problem, they need to be able to empathize with you and be able to feel your feelings from your standpoint. Okay? Now, imagine you go to the restaurant and everything goes great and it goes fine, and then the check comes and you start to write everything out, and then the person you're with says, no, what are you doing? Don't give them a tip. Well, why not? They did a pretty good job. No, what the hell are you doing? Yeah, they're a good waiter. That's why you don't give them a tip. You don't tip good waiters. Excuse me? Yeah, you do. No, you don't. What are you doing? Not in this restaurant. And it hasn't been that way for quite some time. As long as I've known it, you tip a good waiter, right? And it's, no, you don't. You're wrong. And you say, no, you're wrong. Right? You see how this starts working? When you start hearing from somebody else that you're wrong about something that you clearly believe is right. And so this other person may very well pressure you into not writing a tip, and you're like, no, I'm not comfortable with it, with doing that, so I'm just going to write the tip. And they're like, oh, okay, I see how it is. So you just want to go and do it anyways because you're right. And you're like, no, because that's what you do. You tip good waiters, right? This is you standing up for what you believe is right and what you believe is correct. Now, the opposite is also true. Let's say you sit down at the restaurant and the waiter comes and they take your order, and then they hop in the car and they drive away and they leave, and your food never comes. And you're like, well, what the hell? And so then you call the manager over, and the manager's like, yeah, you still have to pay for that. And you're like, what? Why? I never got my food. They just drove off and left. Yes, but you still put in your order, so you're still expected to pay, and you're still expected to tip. And you say, but I didn't receive anything. I didn't get anything for my money. And they say, sorry, rules are rules. Like, this doesn't make any sense. It's like, how does it not make sense? The waiter was here. You gave the waiter your order, and then I don't understand. You gave the waiter your order. The waiter was here, you gave him the order, you pay for the order. But I didn't get anything. Just because you didn't get what you expected doesn't change the fact you put in the order. Now, are you going to pay, or are we going to have a problem? And you're going to say, well, I guess we're going to have a problem. Let's get everybody involved. And so then you feel like you're going crazy. And so then you start looking around. Anybody else have this same issue? Let's just survey all of the public. And you might get a couple of people sound off saying, you know what, like, I can totally see your point. It doesn't really seem like it's fair. But he's the manager. You're like, well, that's bullshit though, and I'm not going to pay it. You see what I mean? When you start flipping the interactions on their head, and you believe that you're right, it now becomes very difficult to convince you to do something that you don't believe is right, that you don't believe is correct. And it may just be like, let me think of another one here. I'm sure I'll come up with something in a minute. I'm just going to carry on then. When there's something that you've long held as being true and correct, it becomes very difficult to suddenly just change your opinion. The same thing can happen, like if the waiter comes and checks your food and they're like, how's your food? And you're like, it's good, it's delicious. And they say, oh, okay, well, sorry about that. We'll go take it back to the kitchen and get them to fix it. And you're like, well, no, there's not a problem. And they take it anyway and they go to the back. And you're like, what in the fuck? And they're like, clearly there was something wrong with your food. Well, what? No, there wasn't. So, well, I asked you if anything was wrong, and you said, no, it's fine. You see what I mean? So that kind of confusion is an analog, and it's not an exact representation. Because see, here's the thing. You have, hopefully, you have whole object relations and object constancy. Now, being with someone like a narcissist and someone who's disordered and has a deficit in those areas can most certainly bring you down in whole object relations and object constancy. And it can even lower your empathy to a degree. And this happens because we tend to be the average of the 5 people we spend the most time around, right? So when you spend time around somebody who's a narcissist, and if their friends are the same way, in general, they just start to bring you down because you're pretty much the average of all your friends. But in general, they're going to be way more deficient than you are, right? So I cannot naturally give you an explanation about that's completely in line with the narcissist viewpoint, because you don't share those traits naturally. So, but I can sort of relate. What I'm relating to you is the difficulty in trying to convince them that they're wrong. This is one reason why they are so absolutely stubborn and why they believe you're the crazy one. Because in their world, they're the ones that are sitting at the restaurant with all the normal expectations of, eating the food, expecting the food to be decent, expecting decent service, and paying the tip. And you're the one that's telling them to the contrary. And this is why they go absolutely crazy. Because they feel that their way is right and correct. And it's been that way for a very long time. So I hope this makes sense. And this is one reason why they say, really just the only solution is to just not be around them. And because there's nothing you can do to really help them. Because there's not really a way that you could convince me not to tip a waiter. And there's not a way to really convince me to pay for an order that I put in but got nothing out of. I didn't get what I expected. Therefore, I am not going to hold up my end of the deal. Now, do you see how that works? How that parallels? Because I did not get what I expected, which were the orders that I put in. I ordered food. I did not get my food. I will not hold up my end of the bargain. Hear that similarity there? It's very difficult to convince somebody to pay for food they did not receive. Unless you put so much pressure on them, they're like, you know what, fine, this is robbery, but I'm going to pay it just to get y'all off my ass. But we're not doing this again. And sure enough, the next time you want to go to a restaurant and you're like, same restaurant, you're like, this shit better not happen again. And you sit down and it's the same waiter and you're like, oh, motherfucker. Here we go again. And so, before too long, sitting down at the same restaurant, getting the same waiter, and the same thing happens over and over and over again. And you're like, this is so wrong. Every time I have to come to this restaurant, I have to deal with this person. I don't get what I expect from this person, and yet I'm expected to pay. Well, that's a lot like the reality of that a narcissist lives with. I'm not saying to, feel sorry for them or anything like that. I'm saying it's sad and unfortunate, but there's really nothing you can do to change their viewpoint. Because it's going to always feel like that for them. And they're going to always feel that it's unfair. Right? Anyways, thank you very much for listening. Please like, comment, or share. And I'll see you on the next video.